In the game of golf, having the right set of clubs is just as important as making sure you have the proper swing technique. Now, while I'm not going to give it any pointers because I'm terrible at golf, I can talk about what I see driving away from many golf courses that I come across. The Mercedes SL has always been a poster car for the golfing enthusiast, but with the values of them dropping significantly, the used market has a plethora of them to choose from. As with all Mercedes, including the SL, the models hit with the highest amount of depreciation have always been the AMG models. If you want to be that baller on a budget, you can look for exactly what I have here, an SL55 AMG. I want to show you why this car can be an excellent buy, but also a potentially scary one. Alright folks, we're in a 2006 Mercedes SL55 AMG. We have left the suburban environment which we were previously in to take part of some of the back roads that Dallas has to offer. So you'll forgive me, I'm going to keep the convertible top up, cooled seats on, AC set just so we can discuss this pretty much of a beastly German Autobahn blaster. So for the norm of SLs that you see running around, everybody's trying to buy the most expensive Mercedes that you can. So we went with the second to top tier, the 65 we'll talk about in a minute, but I really actually prefer the 55. So for styling, you have a much more aggressive front air dam, side skirts, different sets of 18-inch wheels, and of course, compressor badging. Yes, spelled with a K, because this is German after all. So I'm operating with the paddle shifters, and let's go ahead and discuss with something that I don't really particularly care for. The 5-speed, they call it the speed shift. It is one of the things that shows this car's age. It is 9 years old. Everything about this car, engine, refinement, everything is good, with the exception of the transmission. But hey, you're going to take some sort of concessions for this price point. Now, when I bring up the car's price point, let's discuss what this car costs new. In 2006, the base price of the SL55 was $125,000. This car fitted with panorama roof, xenon headlamps, cooled seats, and heated. I'm not using heated, it's 100 degrees out. The adaptive body control, all the options were about 10 grand. So this car's $135,000 new. This car has 61,000 miles. You can pick some of the higher mileage ones for significantly cheaper, but at this mileage and condition, this car is $25,000. That blows my mind that you can get this much car for this little money. Now, that's going to be the deceptive thing. You got to have at least, at a minimum, 10 grand in the bank ready for repairs, because some of the stuff on here would get scary. The biggest thing for me is the hydraulic suspension, or however we're going to be calling hydrodynamic, whatever. It's got a hydraulic pump, servo mechanism to keep the active body control down, but imagine what that's going to cost when it goes out. I don't want to find out. The interior still feels like old school Mercedes. The materials themselves still feel like what you had from the 90s, which is not a bad thing. It was actually really, really good. You got Alcantara on the A-pillars, on the headliner itself, and it's a very, very nice place to be. You got this very fancy, racy start-stop button on the shifter, but it also has the keyless go, so if you want to use the actual key in there. So that is showing how far ahead Mercedes was, even in the mid-2000s. And a couple of years later, your base Altima would have the keyless go. Now, I've already talked about the transmission itself not being one of my favorite points. The infotainment, or command system, as you want to call it, is pretty abhorrent. It's not very good at all. I really don't even want to use it. Any navigation, I want to use my phone. That right there, that shows active body control. I have it in sport right now, and this thing corners surprisingly flat. That actually, I'm going to talk about something right there. This is still a convertible, so potholes and everything, it just shudders through the chassis. It's not very confidence inspiring when you feel that, but if it's a smooth road, nice sweeping corners, it is very, very controllable. As with any AMG car, the heart is the engine. As we discussed, 5.4 liter supercharged V8, building 493 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque with an IHI Leishholm type twin screw supercharger, develops 11.6 pounds of boost. This particular engine built by, if I could read it correctly, Ilcombe Wall. So Herr Wall, you have built a hell of an engine. The torque curve that this 5.4 liter engine, it's surprisingly flat as superchargers would be, from 2,500 to 5,000 RPM. Here we go. Let's feel that a little bit. It is fast, this car. So we get all this power because this car is extremely heavy. I had to double check to make sure I was right with it. This thing weighs 4,400 pounds, and it's not really a big car. This thing is within the 100 pounds of a Hellcat, actually about 80 pounds from a Hellcat. A Hellcat's a huge car, develops a lot more power, so it would probably wipe the floor with this. But it does maintain that lineage with the Hellcat cars, so I will call this the older German brother of the Challenger Hellcat. Yes, the engine is something that dominates a lot of things, but the refinement of this car and how comfortable it would be on a long distance cruise is very, very impressive. I like this car. Now, to be able to get this kind of car for that kind of price, 25 grand, it totally seems worth it.